Kia ora. As a proud Kiwi migrant, I too acknowledge the Indigenous people of this land and the traditional owners of this land. And it's my great pleasure to present with Roslyn Ristuccia, my co-inventor of ClinTrial Refer. While we both share the vision for ClinTrial Refer, it's very much Roslyn in the past year who's very much implemented our mission. And our mission has been version 2, which she's going to tell you about soon. The problem with clinical trials, we all share. We all share the trials of clinical trials and the difficulties in recruitment. And it's well not acknowledged that 90% of trials experience recruitment delays and many fail to reach their recruitment target. And the problem that the Haematology Clinical Research Network, the network of the clinical trial managers across haematology New South Wales, led by Roslyn and Admir Hussain Chahayek when he was at Concord, they recognised that there was really no clear pathways to identifying the currently recruiting trials available across New South Wales. And it was accepted that the awareness of the clinical trials was very much fragmented, very much in silos. We all knew what trials were recruiting at our own hospital, but had no idea about what was recruiting elsewhere. And likewise, the lack of currency of this clinical trial knowledge was a really big problem. Similarly, in Australia, being a very large country, there were geographic barriers to recruitment, and it was felt that patients would not travel to participate in clinical trials elsewhere, and that clinicians would not cross-refer patients to other sites. However, we did hypothesise that this was not necessarily the case, and that if we improved people's knowledge about where trials were recruiting, we would actually increase the cross-referral of patients between hospitals in New South Wales. And that increased cross-referral, if we achieved that primary endpoint, would result in increased trial recruitment and increased activity across the various trial units. So we aim to develop a free mobile app in the pocket of the busy clinician that would facilitate this cross-referral. And that was our primary aim within Haematology New South Wales. But it became so successfully adopted so quickly, a secondary aim became to replicate this template to other geographies and other disciplines. So ClinTrial Refer went live after sort of repetitive end-user testing by the members of the Haematology Clinical Research Network 5 years ago now, or 6 years ago now. And it's very much been dependent on a bottom-up approach where the members of the network provide current comprehensive data to the app manager about the clinical trials that are currently recruiting. And then we also took advantage of the fact that the network had collected data for 18 months before we went live on actual recruitment and cross-referral across the network. And so here's an image of the old ClinTrial Refer, or the current ClinTrial Refer, and you can see it had some pretty easy filters to drill down onto your list of trials there. You could go straight in to look at an individual trial details, and most importantly for the referring or recruiting clinician, identify the inclusion and the exclusion criteria for a given trial to see if their patient was eligible. And then you can see on the list there the sites in green where the trial was actively currently recruiting. So you can see here, no, you can't see, but I hope you can see on the blue arrow there is where ClinTrial Refer went live in May 2013. And you can see before that there were dribs and drabs and a median of one referral a month across New South Wales of patients for clinical trials. And there was an instant and a sustained 9-fold increase in cross-referral of patients to clinical trials. And if you can look hard there, you can actually identify that every December, every year, there's a dip. There's a real downturn in cross-referral to clinical trials. And that's in part, not just because we're getting ready for Christmas, but because the haematologists are all leaving town to go to the American Society of Haematology meeting. That's my current hypothesis, because it happens every year that we've been tracking this data. The patient journey has become more patient-centric, as you can see there. Patients don't, if their haematologist recommends that they should go elsewhere to participate in a clinical trial, the patient will go. All right? This has broken down the silos that exist. Patients don't know about local health districts, and they don't, as much as they love their own treating clinician, they do listen to them, and they will crisscross around Sydney, and indeed, as you can see, from rural and regional New South Wales to participate in clinical trials. So the patient journey has become more patient-centred, as we've had that 63% increase in recruitment over the initial 4 years that ClinTrial Refer went live. What's more, we've had stability, and beyond stability, we've actually had an increase in the clinical trials workforce across New South Wales, with an increase from 36 FTE in 2012 to 55 FTE in 2017. And the clinical trials staff are also very happy that they're recruiting patients to trials rather than having trials where they're constantly doing protocol amendments and yet not recruiting any patients to that given trial. Now, initially, we were a little bit disappointed by the blue line up the top there, where there was only a very small increase in the total number of trials open across New South Wales, from 151 to 163. But the key fact is this 52% increase from 65 to 98 unique trials over the first 5 years since ClinTrial Refer has gone live. So what has happened is that clinical trial sponsors are actually opening fewer sites to recruit the same or even more numbers of patients. And we're utilising cross-referrals to help support that recruitment and leaving capacity at other sites for different trials. And this is particularly relevant in haematology, where we have such a broad spectrum of rare cancers. So we have, however, had challenges, and the biggest challenge has been that of our success. We've now got 22 different clinical trial refer apps to maintain across 22 individual platforms. Each different network has their own different individual needs, their own desires for different filters, and we've ended up with quite a fragmented solution to service the needs of these 22 different networks. And it's really been too expensive to keep to our primary goal of providing a freely available app to meet the needs of all these networks. And we've found it very hard to have agility to implement the new features across 22 different platforms. So now I'll invite Roslyn to come and tell you about our solution.
Thank you. So we got to this stage about over 2 years ago, and I applied for a MTP Connect grant, and we received $375,000 without match funding to implement a new solution. And so we were hypothesising that if we could actually put all of the current apps into one platform, then we could make it less expensive for everyone and easier to maintain for us and keep the currency. But also we could add extra features and added functionality. And so we have developed version 2. We needed to get a new developer because we needed someone with more experience and at the higher end of development. And we needed money for the grants. And we needed a lot of user feedback because we had a lot of different users out there in different disciplines, mostly cancer, but we wanted feedback on what would they like to see in a new app. And so we developed a mentor group of various people across the clinical trials networks, and we got a strategic committee together, and we have succeeded in developing a new app. Now, a lot of what was told to us was all about quality and all about quality and currency. And so in the old apps, there would be a New South Wales app for each state. So if we were doing multi-centres trials, each app manager was entering that trial for their locations. And so there was work that was being repeated, so we wanted to reduce the replication, and we wanted to make it a lot easier. So we have connected it to ANZ CTR and to clintrials.gov, and that data is downloaded by app managers to increase the accuracy. So we're getting curated data now. And so the app managers add the location and the status of the trial at each location, and we now have some within-app error reporting. That's so that anyone that's using the app can report that, hey, wait a minute, that trial closed last week and it's still open on the app. Let's close it and make sure that we're keeping it really current. And we had extra fields that we already sort of knew about. We have a genetics app, so mutation status is very important and becoming, as you know, much more important. We've got the basket trials happening throughout oncology and in other areas. Cohort management. If there's anyone here from Nectar is a New South Wales early phase clinical trials allegiance, and they funded us to do cohort management. So in early trials, there's often different cohorts that are open and closed at different times. We needed age criteria for children's apps, and that data is not contained in the registries, so we can search on that data if you're looking for trials for preterm babies. We have teletrials developing, new developing area of very interest for our rural patients, and so we're flagging that, and you can search in the new version by that. And a healthy volunteer and a how to enrol, which is really pointing at the consumer. If the consumer can download and look for healthy volunteer apps, then they can become part of the research world. So the next thing I'm going to show you, and you're the first audience to see this, video shows the new ClinTrial Refer app, which integrates all of the apps into one globally searchable platform. This work has been done under an MTP Connect grant, as well as generous donations from LHDs and pharma. We're in the process of populating it with trials and beta testing for bugs. So this is the first audience to see this. It's not live yet. The new combined app has a simple login. Just let me log in. I think we'll start with the My Apps page. The apps you can see at the top are my default apps, my favourites, so to speak. The first one is my primary default app, Haematology New South Wales in this case. If I go to Home, it will display my primary default app. But I can access the other default apps easily too. On My Apps page, you can also search all trials across all of the apps and save those searches. For example, you might want to look further afield for multiple myeloma studies. And you can save those searches for a later date. Individual trials can also be saved for those trials that you want on speed dial. And we have a new feature, Report an Error. Anyone can report an error or report that a trial is opened or closed. We're trying to collaborate and keep it current. Let's have a look at settings. In the settings, you can maintain your profile. We're asking for some minor demographic data. Also in the settings, you can choose one or more default apps. One of the apps is the primary default app, but in In this section, you can also choose whether or not you want push notifications or notifications of new trials. In settings, you can turn notifications on or off for all of the apps, and most importantly, you can share the app. Please do this to increase our reach. So let's explore my primary default app. Let's have a look at the familiar search page. As usual, you can search for your condition and apply the searches. Oops. Let's have a look at one of the trials. Here's again phase 2, its status, open or closed, the eligibility criteria, the trial summary, the available locations, and the contact details for those locations. Let's have a look at other details. We've included extra fields in this version. The mutation status and biomarker, increasingly important as you know, and for basket trials, are how to enrol. We have trials where the public can enrol themselves and they'll be able to search for those trials over all the apps. Is this a teletrial? We're flagging teletrials to help our rural population, and age criteria to search for our AYA population and for children's trials. We have a healthy volunteer tag. We're looking to aim this at general consumers wanting to volunteer, more patient-centric. So let's go back to the main trial details page. We have links to the registries for full details, and you can share pages at any time or report an issue or save that trial. In this version, we have developed Cohort Management for early phase trials. So this trial is a demonstration. If a trial has cohorts, then an extra tab appears. Pressing that tab leads you to the cohorts, name, status and description. I think that this feature will help to organise the spots available in these trials, and a secondary contact can be added to direct people to a specific phase 1 coordinator. Of course, this is the beta version, and we're wanting to deliver this next month. It might depend on the app stores themselves, and how quickly they'll put it up live. But please look out for information about when your apps are transferred to the new platform. Thank you.
And thank you. Certainly we're hoping that by the end of the month everybody will have downloaded the new version. Well done.